One mountain nearly erased every human being who has ever lived. Not a war, not a disease, a single eruption, few miles from where you're standing right now, and the sky above your head has just gone the color of a bruise in the middle of the afternoon. You don't know the mountain's name. You don't know it's a mountain at all, actually. To you, it's just a sound you felt in your chest 3 days ago and a sky that hasn't looked right since. Ash is falling like slow gray snow onto ground that should be warm this time of year. The sun is still up there, technically. You can tell because there's a dim smear of brightness behind the haze, like someone's dimmed the entire world down to almost nothing. Here's what you don't know yet. Standing under that ruined sky, some researchers believe this single event pushed the entire human species down to a population you could fit in a modern town. Other researchers now think that's wrong, and that people like you didn't just survive this. They figured out how to keep living through it while it was still happening. 4 chapters, each one is a piece of what actually gets a person through a sky that's forgotten how to be blue. If you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. Have you ever wondered what it actually felt like to live through the single worst environmental disaster in the story of our species? Not read about it, live through it one day at a time. You're about to find out. And you're going to need water, shelter, food, and a place to go, because tonight the sky isn't planning on clearing up anytime soon. Before this video starts, quick thing. Everything we talk about on this channel, the fire, the shelters, the survival tactics, the knowledge that kept ancient humans alive through disasters that should have killed them, someone actually wrote all of it down. It's called the Primitive Survival Bible, and it covers exactly how to survive without any modern survival gadget. Learn survival techniques just like our ancient ancestors. Essential for everyone. Link in the description if you're interested. Let's begin. Chapter 1, The Sky. You're not close enough to the mountain to have died on day 1. And that fact alone is doing more work than you realize. The eruption itself, a supervolcano event, the largest of its kind in roughly 2 million years, happened far enough away that you never saw it happen. What you got instead was the aftermath traveling toward you. Ash and debris spreading for thousands of miles, a plume large enough to dim skies on continents the mountain itself could never touch. You're living downstream of a catastrophe you never witnessed, which is its own strange kind of unsettling. The thing that's ruining your sky isn't even the thing you'd point to if someone asked you what happened. Lesser known fact, the volcano's material output was staggering by any measure. Roughly 2,800 cubic kilometers of ejected rock and ash, an eruption thousands of times larger than the modern eruptions people study today. For comparison, one of the biggest volcanic events of the last century caused less than a single degree of global cooling. This one was built on a completely different scale, and you're standing in what's left of its shadow, hundreds or thousands of miles from where it actually happened. The sky staying dark matters more than it sounds like it should. Plants use light on a schedule, break that schedule badly enough, for long enough, and the plants you rely on for food stop keeping theirs. You haven't starved yet, but you've noticed the wild grains taking longer to ripen this season, and noticing that early is the only real head start you're going to get. The animals have noticed too, in their own way. The herds you'd normally expect to see moving through this stretch of ground are thinner on the ground than usual, spread further out, harder to predict. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. For decades, the leading theory about a disaster exactly like this one was that it caused a volcanic winter lasting 6 to 10 years, with cooling effects lingering for 1,000 years after that. Cold enough, some argued, to nearly end the species you belong to. Whether that theory holds up is a different question. One this story is going to answer by the end rather than the beginning. Right now, all you know is the sky is wrong, and it's been wrong since the ground shook 3 sunrises ago. You start doing the only thing that makes sense, paying very close attention to what still grows, what still moves, and what's starting to disappear. Not panicking, just watching carefully, like your continued existence depends on it, because right now it genuinely might. Chapter 2, The water, the stream near your camp, used to run clear. It doesn't anymore. Ashfall does something ugly to water that people don't expect until they've lived through it. Fine volcanic particles settle into every open source, turning drinkable water, gritty, sometimes bitter, coating your throat in a way that makes you want to spit rather than swallow. Closer to the eruption itself, acid rain contaminates supplies outright, turning entire watersheds into something nobody could safely drink. You're far enough away that your water is merely bad, not lethal, which tonight counts as good news. You've switched to a method your group has used before, for less dramatic reasons, letting ash-heavy water sit still in a hollowed container until the grit settles to the bottom, then drawing only from the top, carefully, without disturbing the layer of sediment you've just spent half a day waiting out. It's not a perfect fix. It's a workable one, and workable is the entire bar tonight. Lesser known fact, this is not a uniquely prehistoric problem. Every documented volcanic winter scenario, whether ancient or modern, follows the same basic physics. Ash in the air eventually becomes ash in the water, and the group that survives is the one that adjusts its water gathering habits fastest, not the one that panics about air quality and forgets to check what's happening at ground level. The sky gets all the attention. The water is where people actually get hurt. Food is the harder problem, and it's the one with no quick fix. Foraging in a bad season means everything you'd normally count on is either late, small, or gone entirely. You're eating less than you'd like and rationing more than you're used to, stretching stored and dried food further than any single week should require. This is where your camp's earlier decisions, what got dried, what got stored, what got wasted in a better season, back when wasting a little food felt harmless, are quietly deciding how this month goes. Nobody complains out loud about the smaller portions. Complaining doesn't make the grain ripen faster. You drink your settled water. You eat smaller portions than you want to, and you keep watching the horizon because word has started moving through your group about a direction worth walking in. Chapter 3, The Journey. Here's the decision nobody in your group takes lightly. Staying is not automatically the safer option. Word has reached you the way word reaches everyone in a small, mobile group through people who've walked farther than you have and come back with an opinion. The coast, they say, isn't nearly as bad. Whatever's happening to the sky and the ground inland isn't hitting the water the same way out there. It's not warm, nobody's claiming it's warm, but it's not this. Coastal environments buffer temperature swings that inland regions can't, and shellfish and marine food sources don't fail the same way inland foraging does when the sky stops cooperating. The ocean doesn't care what color the sky is. That's reason enough to walk, even without anyone in your group understanding the actual mechanism behind why the coast is different. They just know from people who've been there and back that it is. The walk is not the dramatic part people assume it is. It's mostly just distance, covered slowly, with a group that's rationing energy as carefully as it's rationing food. You carry less than usual, you stop more than usual. Every member of your group who isn't strong enough to keep the pace becomes the group's actual bottleneck, and the group adjusts speed around that person rather than leaving them behind, because a group that abandons its slowest member has just made itself smaller and weaker for the rest of the walk, and everyone here understands that math instinctively without needing it explained out loud around a fire. There are quiet nights on this walk, and there are bad ones. On the bad ones, the ash is thick enough that breathing feels like work, and you wrap cloth or hide across your face the way you've seen the older members of your group do without being told why. On the quiet nights, you almost forget what you're walking away from, right up until you look up and remember the sky still hasn't fixed itself. You reach salt air before you reach the coastline itself. That's usually how it happens. You smell the change before you see it. A shift in the wind that tells you the walk is almost over before your eyes confirm it. Chapter 4, The Shore. The sky is still wrong when you get there. But everything under it is different. You didn't walk toward warmth. You walked toward stability. The temperature here is genuinely more bearable than what you left. But the bigger win is the food. Shellfish along the rocks, fish in the shallows, plants that haven't failed the way the inland grains did. Your group starts eating better within days, not months. And that alone changes the mood of the entire camp, in a way that's hard to describe to anyone who hasn't lived through the alternative. Your group doesn't stop being careful. Rationing continues, because nobody knows yet how long the sky intends to stay like this. But the arguing has changed. People argue about small, unimportant things now. Whose turn it is to check the tide pools? Which child wandered too close to the rocks, instead of arguing about whether there's enough food to make it through the week? That shift, from crisis arguing to nothing arguing, is the actual sign that your group has made it long before anyone announces it out loud. Here's the detail that reframes everything you assumed walking in. Some of the strongest evidence for how humans actually lived through a disaster, exactly like this one, comes from coastal cave sites like the one your group is standing in right now. Evidence not of a species barely clinging on, but of people staying busy, refining their tools, and generating more activity during the hard years, not less. The population collapse story, the one where this event nearly wiped out the entire species, has been significantly challenged by exactly that kind of evidence. You're not a statistic in someone's extinction theory. You are the reason that theory turned out to be wrong. The sky clears eventually. Not soon. Some who remember the mountain sound will be old before it fully happens. But eventually, and by the time it does, your group has already rebuilt a version of normal on a coastline you didn't know existed a season ago. One your children and their children will simply grow up thinking of as home, with no memory at all of the sky ever looking any different. 4 chapters: the sky, which went wrong for reasons you couldn't see and wouldn't understand for tens of thousands of years. The water, which turned out to be the quiet emergency underneath the dramatic one. The journey, where staying stopped being the safe choice and walking became the smart one. And the shore, where a group that adapted quietly outlasted a disaster that was supposed to end the species. Nobody in your group knew they were living through what some scientists would later call the closest call in human history. They just knew the sky was wrong, the water needed settling, and the coast was worth the walk. That turned out to be enough. If this one made you look up, the next one might make you look for the exit.